What do you know about Uganda? This is a question I asked myself multiple times before my first trip to the East African country. I'm a Nigerian traveler and YouTuber who visited Uganda in 2024. I was shocked by some of the cultural differences and I had to unlearn some things I thought I knew about this country while opening myself up to new knowledge and experience. You might not like all I have to say about Uganda and my experience there, and that's understandable. Feel free to disagree with me in the comment section as long as you're respectful. It's cool. Are you ready to explore Uganda with me? Growing up, Uganda wasn't a country I knew much about. We only learned about it in negative context, like Idi Amin, wars, and similar situations. I always knew that there's more to this country than dictators and comically made action movies. I visited Uganda with an open mind, ready to have the time of my life. A couple days before my trip, I knew no Ugandan person. I didn't know what currency was used in the country, and I wasn't aware of the amazing things and places to do outside the country's capital. Suffice to say that this country surprised me in more ways than one. It's sort of like a middle ground between Kenya and Rwanda. It's not as exciting as Nairobi, neither is it as boring as Kigali. Kampala is the real Africa, for better or for worse. When I pulled up into Kampala on a Sunday morning, I got to see a city that was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. I am not saying Kampala is a bad city, neither am I saying it's the worst city I've ever been to. All I'm saying is Kampala has a very specific and peculiar vibe that is unmatched anywhere else. You might like it and you might also not like it, but one thing's for sure is this city can be polarizing. You either love the vibe or you do not. You might have also heard that Uganda's nightlife is insane on the continent. Unfortunately, I couldn't experience it because I came during weekdays and not on the weekend, but I hope to one day experience this Ugandan nightlife I've heard a lot about. But Kampala is not for rookies. You need to have some sense of street smarts to be able to get the best out of your experience, especially if you're trying to live like a truly local and authentic experience. You cannot afford to let people take advantage of you. One thing I love the most about Uganda is almost everybody is very dark skinned. I'm a very dark skinned person and not everybody is necessarily very dark skinned in Nigeria, and I'm darker than most people. So growing up there were like jokes and all. And coming to Uganda for the first time, I got to see a population filled with very dark people and I immediately felt at home. I know it might be very strange to say, but I just felt very calm and these are my people. Almost everybody looked like me and it was a joy to experience. This might be a little controversial and I'm okay with that. The average Ugandan to me is bigger than the average person from neighboring countries. It might be well known that East Africans are not necessarily the most physically imposing on the continent, but Ugandans are the exception, so to speak. The average Ugandan man looks like the average West African. Shoulders are broader. You might not necessarily agree with me and the data might say otherwise, but that's my reality. I noticed that the average Ugandan, both men and women, are larger physically than people from neighboring countries. Please consider supporting my work by joining the channel. You can also decide to gift super thanks. If that's a bit too much, subscribing and liking is the easiest and cheapest way to support my work. Thank you as you do so. My next culture shock might make me sound very non-African and I apologize, but whenever I think of landlocked countries, I always think of deserts. I always think of very dry, maybe because the landlocked countries in West Africa are in the Sahel and Sahara. I always expected Uganda as a landlocked country to be very dry, but I was pleasantly surprised when I traveled the entire length of the country from Rwanda to Kenya and I saw just how fertile the land is. At first it was a bit surprising and then I started wrapping my head around it. I didn't expect the country to be as green as it is. I always imagined East Africa to be filled with sparse savannas, you know, kind of like what I saw on Nigerian Wild. Uganda felt more like Central or even Western Africa. The country has a lot of water for a landlocked country, a lot of fresh water at that. You can find the source of the Nile in the country. You can also find Lake Victoria in Uganda, which means that Uganda has amazing beaches as a landlocked country. Next up, something that shocked me is Ugandans' relationship with their president. I mostly hung out with people that were in their 20s, so I kind of expected certain things on how they related with their president, but I was shocked. As a Nigerian, it is one of our favorite pastimes to bully essentially and make fun of leaders we feel that are not doing well. It's kind of our right and our number one coping mechanism. But I realize that that isn't always the case in many countries. Many people do not have the luxury of going on the internet and essentially insulting their leaders. As you might know, especially if you are a Ugandan watching this, Uganda has a long-serving leader and I didn't know what kind of relationship young people around my age had with him or emotions they had towards him. While talking about some geopolitical issues news here and there, we kind of stumbled upon talking about the president. And I don't know if it was fear or genuine love, but most people in their 20s that was around were kind of defending and making excuses for their presidents, which was insane. I did not expect it, but probably Uganda just love Museveni a lot. Who knows? I would like to hear from you. If you're a young Ugandan watching this and you can share your thoughts without fear, what's your relationship with Museveni? When you hear his name, what you think about him, what emotions does he conjure up? Because I know the kind of emotions that Tinubu conjures up when I hear his name, and they are all very negative, very, very negative. My next culture shock is gun available to regular people. Guns aren't really accessible to regular people in Nigeria, and 99.9% of the time when I see a gun, or probably 100, it's always with somebody in the armed force. Ugandans can access guns easier than people from most other countries on the continent. It's not as easy as Americans, far from it. Imagine my surprise when I saw a young bodyguard at a store in the center of town. It couldn't have been more than 20 with an AK. I was dumbfounded and genuinely shocked. Not shocked like scared, but shocked as wow. Another culture shock was seeing Ugandans singing Nigerian songs that weren't in English word for word. I kind of understood that Nigerian songs were big almost everywhere on the continent, but seeing people speak in Pidgin English or Yoruba word for word, it was incredible. The next thing isn't necessarily a culture shock, but was something that I enjoyed seeing. I enjoyed seeing a bit of wildlife in the city. I saw a couple birds, and they weren't just like regular sized birds, they were like massive birds that could fly. I'm not gonna say the name because the last time I posted a video and then I thought it was one bird, everybody was correcting me. Uganda also has exciting wildlife attractions outside the capital. I would say consider visiting Queen Elizabeth National Park, even though I'm not a big fan of the name of the park. Next up, we have boda seizures. On a trip into the city, my boda suddenly slowed down and started turning back, and then I saw every other boda in front of us turning back, kind of stealing. I didn't know what was happening, but I cautiously watched. When we got off the main road and we got into a back road, I asked what was happening, and he kind of explained, even though there was a bit of language barrier, kind of explained that they wanted to seize the borders, probably government officials or something. And finally, we have the number one culture shock for me. I kind of expected people in Uganda to speak Swahili. I expected everybody in this part of the continent to speak Swahili as the number one local language. But then I learned that Uganda speaks Luganda, while Rwanda speaks Rwanda, which was like a totally new experience for me. This is not to say that many Ugandans do not speak Swahili, but the lingua franca, so to speak, is Luganda. But if you are a tourist and you speak English, you can get away with speaking only English in the country for the most part. There is a lot to do in this country, and Uganda has a lot to offer. I feel like Uganda is a country that might be a bit misunderstood, but if you are willing to make concessions, you can have an amazing experience, especially outside Kampala. I'm pained that I didn't get the opportunity to do as much as I wanted to in the country, and I didn't really plan my trip well to give me more time in the country. I don't know if I'm ever going to visit, but I do hope to one day revisit and have a better and longer time in the country. Click the video on screen now. I made it specially for you. Until the next video, your friend from the Ukodo YouTube channel wishes you love, peace, and prosperity.